I was born and raised in Texas, but had moved to New York when I was 21. So when I found out at the beginning of a week-long trip that I'd have a couple of overnights in Austin, I was super excited to go to my home state for a few days. My brother lived just north of the city, and we planned to hang out and go to dinner the night we arrived when he got off work. And the following day we were going to meet up with our dad, who lived about an hour away. So I get to the hotel downtown, the crew and I check in, and then we each head off to our rooms. Short elevator ride and I get to mine, where not even 5 minutes later there's a loud, hard knock on the door. It was only around 1 or 2 p.m. and I hadn't called either my dad or brother to let them know I was in town yet, so they wouldn't know what room I was in. I assumed it was maybe one of my crewmates, so I headed to the door. Before even making it to the door, however, a loud male voice on the other side boomed, "The front desk sent me about the bathroom problem you called in," before trying to open the door. "Unlock the door and open up, miss. I need in, now." I froze in my tracks. I hadn't even been in the bathroom yet, let alone called anything to the front desk. I'm a petite chick, and while I take no shit from anyone despite my size, I still err on the side of caution. Slowly inching toward the door to look out the peephole, all I could tell was that the man on the other side was at least 6 feet tall and easily over double my weight. No way in hell was I going to unlock the door. I responded to the guy, telling him he must have had the wrong room. He continued pounding on the door while constantly turning the handle, telling me no, he needed in, and was getting in the room one way or another. I panicked, but thankfully had the sense to grab the phone and call the front desk. The concierge confirmed that they had neither sent anyone up to my room, nor had they received a call about the bathroom. The entire time, this guy was still determined to get in my room, pounding and yelling. Lucky for me, the front desk had dispatched security to my floor. When the security officers step off the elevator a few seconds later, I can hear them in the hall approach and ask the guy who he was, what he was doing, and telling him he needed to leave the hotel. He immediately gets hostile and aggressive toward them, and the front desk clerk I'm still on the phone with tells me police have been called and are on their way. In the meantime, I'm trapped in my room, scared shitless. Long story short, the cops show up pretty quickly and manage to arrest the guy for trespassing and criminal menacing or something like that. I later found out that the guy was also wanted in connection to a string of break-ins and violent sexual assaults in Austin. He had seen and stalked me from the minute I entered the hotel lobby. Apparently I was exactly his type of victim. Nothing else happened after that, but it still rattled the fuck out of me for the rest of my stay in that hotel. It was my 21st birthday, so 3 of my best girlfriends and I celebrated with a trip to New York City. To give you background, 2 of my friends, Lana and Molly, didn't get along that well. The third was and is my best friend to this day, Elle. My birthday is in December, so it was excruciatingly cold at the time of the trip. We were all staying in the same hotel room. One night I was pretty tired and ended up going back to the hotel a bit earlier. I didn't want to ruin my friends' time, and I was cool with them staying out later and going to a club. I went home to call my then boyfriend at the time and just relax. I also wanted to go back to the hotel because I was honestly emotionally drained. Throughout the day, Lana and Molly had been arguing on and off, not really about anything huge, but just nitpicking because they presumably had very opposite personalities. I don't like drama, and being caught in the middle was getting annoying, so I really wanted to be by myself. So, I'm back at the hotel, talking to my boyfriend. 20 minutes in, I get a second call coming from Molly. I answer, and she's crying. She was always pretty dramatic, but of course I was concerned. Conversation went something like this. "Lana is such a fucking bitch. I'm coming back to the hotel to hang with you." "Are you okay? What happened?" "We got into a fight in the cab, and I just don't want to deal with her. I'm heading back now." "Okay, be safe. When will you be here?" "In like 10 minutes. I'm getting in the cab now." "Okay, see you soon. We can talk when you get here." I hang up the phone with my boyfriend and tell him I'm going to hang out with her. She comes in a few minutes later and tells me about their fight. I can't even really remember what they fought about, most likely because it was petty and stupid, but we talked for a bit and I told her we should just try to get some rest. It had been a long day, and I was over all the drama of that day, so we did. When Ella and Lana came back to the hotel about an hour later, Lana was pissed drunk. She came in stumbling, yelling obscenities at Molly that I couldn't make out. Molly said something calmly, but to oppose her. Lana got really mad and kicked my suitcase really hard into the wall. This obviously pissed me off. It's one thing to be upset, but to try to damage other people's belongings, is definitely not okay. I had had enough and wanted to leave. One of my other best friends, who wasn't able to come, had a sister who lived in Queens. Her family is like my family, so I texted her telling her the situation and asked if I could come stay with her for the night. She said of course, so I snatched my suitcase and headed towards the elevator. It was slow, so I was waiting there for a few minutes. Moments later, Molly came bursting out of the room. "I'm coming with you." "No, I want to be alone." "I'm sorry we've ruined your birthday. I want to come with you. I don't want to be around Lana right now. She's being a bitch." "Fine, whatever." The elevator opens and we head to the hotel lobby. It was around 2 a.m. at this time, and given that NYC is always bustling, I was surprised to see there were virtually no hotel guests in the lobby. There was one man at the front desk and then another hotel staff member standing around. It was really cold outside, so I wanted someone to hail a cab for me. I asked the front desk if he could have someone do it for me, and he called the other man over and asked. The other man was pretty tall, maybe 6 feet at least. Not overweight, but stockier for sure. He had a very short buzzed haircut and the most piercing blue eyes, but not the kind that are kind. They seemed completely off, and I remember thinking that before he even opened his mouth to speak to me. "Where are you going?" he asked in what was probably a Russian accent. Even his voice seemed cold, like it lacked any warmth or friendliness. I kind of choked on my words. We're going to Queens." He paused. He moved in closer to me and got his face up in mine. To put into perspective how close he was, we could have easily kissed if he moved about an inch closer. Then he asked, "Is it just you two? Alone?" I said, yes, as I tried to move my body backwards a bit to create some distance. He literally stared into my eyes for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 5 seconds. Then he just smiled. I remember feeling so creeped out and just kind of frozen. In my gut, I knew something was off. I looked at my friend, who was obviously uncomfortable as well. It was like she was trying to tell me with her eyes that this man gave her the creeps too. Finally, he backed away from me. "Stay right there." He then whipped out his phone and called someone. He was speaking Russian, so I don't know what he said. The whole time, his eyes stayed on me and my friend, and I remember just feeling paralyzed. I was thinking, do we just run? I kept looking back at the glass doors of the hotel entrance, hoping that by a miracle, a cab would drive by so that we could leave. He got off the phone after about a minute, and all he said was, "Someone's coming, don't worry." A few minutes later, another man entered the hotel. He wasn't dressed like a hotel staff member at all, which was my biggest red flag. Then he started speaking with the man who called in Russian. They kept nodding while speaking and looking back at each other, and then at my friend and me. The man with the creepy eyes looked at us and said, "He will take you where you need to go." What? Go with him. He will take you. Just then, I kid you not, I look back at the doors and I see a cab slowly inching up our street in traffic. "Oh, it's okay. I see a cab right there. We're just going to take that." "Thanks," I yelled as I grabbed Molly's hand and began running out of the hotel to get in the cab. As soon as we got in the cab, we both looked at each other and expressed our fear for what had just happened. We both were really scared of the man and agreed that we thought something was incredibly off about the men in the encounter. The first thing that came to my mind was that maybe they were a part of a human trafficking ring. When I think back to that night, I always thank God for that cab. It came at just the right time. I'll never know for sure what that man's intentions were. Since then, I've lived in New York, and I've visited it again many times, and no hotel staff member has ever offered to personally drive me somewhere. I don't know what would have happened had we gone with that man, but I have a feeling it would have been not where we wanted to go. I attended cosmetology school a few years back, and one time we all went on a field trip to see a big show where they were going to show new hair and nail techniques and such. It was in a bigger city a few hours away from where I was attending school. We all sort of divided into our own groups to get hotel rooms for the show to save money, so me and 3 other girls booked one hotel room to stay in together. After we checked into the hotel and got to our room, we were all pretty excited to have a sleepover before the hair and fashion show tomorrow, so we decided to go get some drinks and food. When we returned to the hotel an hour or so later, it was getting pretty late, and a few of us were pretty tipsy, but we quietly headed to our room. I was sober, however, because at the time I was just about to turn 21, so I couldn't get a drink at the bar yet. We were all just hanging out in our room planning the day tomorrow when sometime after 11 p.m. our hotel room phone rang. It kind of startled us because I've stayed in hotels quite a few times and I never remember my hotel phone ringing. I answered it and said, "Hello?" This was a few years ago, so I don't remember the exact transcript of the conversation, but I will get as close as I can. A man on the phone replied, saying we hadn't paid for our room and that one of us needed to come down into the lobby to pay the bill. Immediately, alarm bells went off in my head because we had paid for the room. We had all pooled money and given it to Molly, and I watched her pay when we all checked in together. I don't think they would have given us room keys if we hadn't paid for the room, plus adding on the fact that even if something had happened with the billing, it would be super unprofessional to call someone at 11 p.m. when they may be asleep. I replied that we had paid for the room, and that if there was a problem with billing that we could sort it out tomorrow morning. The man insists that just one of us must come down because our room isn't paid for, and that we won't be allowed to stay the night if one of us doesn't come down right now and pay. He sounded frustrated. Honestly, I'm a paranoid person, but the whole thing felt so wrong that there was no way I was letting any of us go down to the lobby that night. I told him that we would be staying in our room until they came and removed us. This time he sounds even more frustrated, insisting one of us must come down or there will be consequences. That was the last straw for me, as now I was sure something bad was happening, so I just hung up the phone and figured, if this is really someone from the hotel, they will come up to our room, or we will deal with it tomorrow. Obviously my classmates in the room with me were like, "What the hell was that?" I said I got a really bad feeling from the dude and explained to them what happened. Thankfully they all agreed that we had paid and that it was basically unheard of for a hotel front desk to call you in your room past 11 p.m. So we were a bit on edge and eventually fell asleep. No one came to kick us out. The next morning, as we went to check out, we asked the person working at the front desk what the call last night was about and did we need to make payment. They had no idea what we were talking about, and they insisted that the front desk would not have called us at that late of an hour. We all just sort of looked at each other and were extremely freaked out, so we just sort of left quickly after that. I forgot about this pretty quickly after it happened since nothing bad actually happened, but thinking back on this now, it seems so scary. Who called us? And why did they want one of us to come down to the lobby alone in the middle of the night? How did they know what room we were in? Honestly, the more I think about it, the more creeped out I get, and I would love to hear if anyone has any ideas of what that was, or if something similar has happened to you. Anyway, I'm very glad none of us went down into the lobby that night.